one of the most important movements on stage is the one you most likely think the least about. Yet how you make this all-important move determines whether your message is clearly heard or lost in your body noise. Our next speaker tells us about his challenge with making this move, his long study of the move, and how he found out about a simple solution. After this presentation, you will understand this important move, know the common mistakes people make when using this move, and learn a simple way to avoid those mistakes. And now please join me in welcoming Tim Wilson.
Toastmasters Manual, Company Communications, is a wonderful manual. There's a lot of great stuff in it. And especially the program Your Body Speaks. The project Your Body Speaks has really great things in it. But there's one major thing Your Body Speaks doesn't say. One major thing that Your Body Speaks leave out. And that is, what should you do when your body needs to shut the heck up? Because sometimes your body speaks so loudly that you can't really hear what's coming out of your mouth. Sometimes your body is too loud. Your body is speaking too much. And I'm specifically thinking about transitioning between characters in a speech. When you have a speech and you're transitioning back and forth between characters, your body can do too much movement, too much noise. And specifically, I'm talking about the pivot. You know what the pivot is? Heard of the pivot? Yeah.
Heard of it.
You heard of it? Can you describe it? What it is?
You turn your body to address a different audience or affect a new emotion or new mood.
Exactly. So the idea of the pivot is that you've got different characters going on, and you kind of pivot back and forth between characters. Now, it's a little confusing to people, and you're a little confused, and my blonde-haired friend Bob was a little confused about it too. And so I said, Bob, what don't you understand about how the pivot works? And he said, Tim, I just don't get it. How does this pivot thing, what do you do with it? Well, Bob, it's really simple. You just stand there, like you're talking to somebody, like you casually would, and then you pivot quickly, and it looks like the person is, talking to somebody else. Well, what does that look like? To tell you the truth, it looks a little silly. It did look silly. The worst part is, I'm staring off into space, back and forth, pivoting like crazy, and half the time my audience is either left or is asleep, dead. So it doesn't work. And the worst part about the pivot, when you're going back and forth, you're pivoting between characters, is you can get a little bit too overexcited, you're pivoting back and forth, and then all of a sudden you go, these numbers, and then a little bit off balance. Forget everything you're saying. It just doesn't work. And Toastmasters doesn't deal with that. How do you transition effectively between characters? I used to pivot for years because I thought that was just the way to do it. I'd seen other people do it, and that seemed to be the way to do it. Then I went through hundreds of dollars of DVDs, books, studying things. Finally found out from Craig Valentine, world champion speaker, better way to connect with the audience, a better way to transition between characters in a story. And I'm going to call it the soft switch, because it's very simple. You don't do any pivoting at all. In fact, you face the audience the whole time. All you have to do is to indicate how you're going to transition between characters, how you're going to move between characters, and indicate who's talking. It's that simple. So you use the person's name in the dialogue, and then the audience can keep track of it. Well, the blank stares I'm seeing here was pretty much like the blank stares my friend Bob had me explaining it. He said, Bob, what don't you understand about the soft switch? And Bob said, well, Tim, I don't understand how this could work. How could you possibly be looking at the audience and they understand how you transition between characters? Bob, it's not that big a deal. It really isn't. You don't need to make that huge movement back and forth. Tim, I see people do it all the time. It works for them. Bob, trust me, if you leave it out, it'll still work. You still will be able to see it moving back and forth. And it works. And even Bob started doing it. works very well because it's simple and it connects to people. So if you are doing pivot or you see people doing pivot, stop them by force if necessary, because it doesn't help you. It just disconnects you from the audience. So start using the soft switch. If you're trying to figure out how to transition between characters, start using the soft switch. It is so simple, so effective, and it'll help you so much, because too much is made of switching back and forth between characters. And if you make a big deal about it, your audience gets so far involved in your body movement, they completely forget about your story. They forget about what you're saying, about what you're bringing across the audience, and what you're saying to the audience. So start doing it. Just make it a part. Get a story. If you don't have a story yet, find a story, because every speech you have should have a story in it. Find the characters in that story and practice talking to the audience while you have that dialogue. So the first thing is to get a speech, make sure there's a story in the speech. Every one of your speeches has a story in it, right? Somewhere, because stories tell things. Yes? Press says yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Good, good, good. And we all know Press is amazingly dynamic, so he's the one to go to with that sort of thing. And Press said that you definitely can trust him. And just practice switching back and forth between characters. And if you do the soft switch, you'll find specifically that you'll have exceptional speeches in your next speaking situation. Next time, I'm going to talk about what to do if you have TMV.
I apologize to Tim. I erred before he came up and spoke. I failed to give or provide the title of his speech, which was The Pivot Problem. Tim, I have a quick question.
Yes.
This may be reserved until later, but I want to know now. Should the soft switch totally and always replace the pivot?
Yes. I'd say just get rid of the pivot. Use the soft switch when you're in front of an audience, because it will help you connect, and there's no situation you're pivoting back and forth where you can't use the soft switch.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker and fourth is Prez, and as Tim told us, he's a very dynamic speaker. So be prepared to be showered in dynamics. Prez. And Prez's speech is called Assumptions.
Have you ever found yourself